Hello to all you Goji fans. I am back with another installment of TokuMania. I know it's been, say, 4 or 5 years since my last review, which ironically was released during Godzilla's 65th birthday. It would have been really stupid if I didn't make one for his 70th, so here we are. Also, I did say I was going to do reviews for Kamen Rider Hibiki and Kishiru Sentai Ryusoldier, but we'll talk about those later on in this video, as well as the future for this series. And yes, I will bring up the more recent Godzilla stuff that has been coming out. Enough words, let's get on to the movie. With the release of Godzilla, King of the Monsters, it was apparent that the MonsterVerse was a huge success in the eyes of audiences, and that would be sticking around. For their next iteration, they would pit the King of the Monsters against another prominent titan in this universe, Kong, who was last seen in 2017's Kong Skull Island, which in its own right is a really good movie. Even if the concept is similar, the film is not a remake of the 1962 classic King Kong vs. Godzilla, which could be a good sign because I don't have to worry about them doing a crappy remake of my favorite Showa-era Godzilla film. Let's get started. We start out with Kong being monitored by Monarch in a dome that shields him from the storm that has overtaken Skull Island. We see that he has formed a connection with a deaf native girl named Gia, who is also the adopted daughter of Kong expert Dr. Eileen Andrews. Meanwhile, a technician named Bernie Hayes...
Bernie...
Don't Bernie me!
tries to uncover a conspiracy that revolves around the company he works for, Apex Cybernetics. His efforts are cut short when Godzilla attacks the facility for whatever reason, officially pulling a heel turn in this universe. Returning from the last movie, Madison Russell is one of the people who listens to a podcast that Bernie has, so she enlists the insistence of her friend, Josh Valentine, to investigate Godzilla's attacks, which leads him to Bernie himself, and they all work together to uncover the conspiracy behind Apex. Apex's CEO, Walter Simmons, recruits a former Monarch scientist named Nathan Lin to help find the power source located in the home world of the Titans, Hollow Earth. Nathan convinces Eileen to have Kong lead them to Hollow Earth, but they eventually cross paths with Godzilla, leading to a clash of the Titans, if you will. How will this battle fare out, and who will emerge victorious as king? And on another note, what will the conspiracists find in their escapades in Apex? On a character side of things, you can tell that this movie seems pretty crowded, but the film actually does a pretty good job balancing them all out. I'm not saying that they all have complex character arcs, but they all feel like they have a presence and don't feel left out at times. I think the best way to digest them is by dividing them into groups that revolve around the monsters you see in the movie. Let's say that there is a group for Kong, one for Godzilla, and another that serves as the villains. First is the group for Kong. There's Dr. Nathan Lin, played by Alexander Skarsgård. He used to work for Monarch and was a theorist for Hollow Earth, which led to an expedition that took the life of his brother due to the strong reverse gravitational effect. He is pretty reluctant about the expedition with Kong, but eventually comes around in the end when he helps revive Kong in the final battle. Then there's Dr. Eileen Andrews, played by Rebecca Hall, who is Gia's adopted mother. I wouldn't say that there's much to her character, but the scenes where she interacts with Gia are pretty endearing and believable, which then leads to Gia herself, played by Kaylee Hoddle. As mentioned before, she forms a connection with Kong through the use of sign language. I'll get into more about that when I talk about Kong, but I think it's a unique way to understand the monsters in this universe compared to the perceptions characters would make in previous movies. Heck, I even think that Gia is the MonsterVerse's version of Mickey from the Heisei-era films. Only difference is that, well, she isn't psychic. Next is the Godzilla Group. Millie Bobby Brown reprises her role as Madison Russell. Unlike last time where I thought that she was put into the movie for the sake of having her in there, I feel like that her character is improved, and it feels like she helps drive the story. We also meet her friend Josh, played by Julian Dennison, who doesn't really do much except kind of be the straight man with Madison. Last is Bernie, played by Brian Tyree Henry. He is a technician working for Apex who is also driven by his wife's death to uncover the conspiracy behind Apex. I really think that he is a pretty likable character and has some really funny scenes to him.
Oh, drink! Hey, what are you... That's your solution? I gotta die here with you and sober!
But how deep does this thing go, Bernie?
Help. Goes to help.
Last is the human antagonists of the movie, the cybernetic tech company known as Apex. The company is led by CEO Walter Simmons, played by Damien Bakir. Sorry if I mispronounced that. He's the one who enlists Nathan Lin to convince Eileen to bring Kong to Hollow Earth and have him find the power source that he eventually uses to power up Mechagodzilla, which will be used in order to fend off the Titans and reclaim their place in the world. Wow, a CEO who turns out to be the bad guy? That's new! Even if it's cliched, Walter Simmons is pretty fun to watch. I really like hearing him talk, and his plan is pretty understandable. It's just a shame he gets axed off in a matter of seconds. He also has a really hot daughter named Maya, played by Isa Gonzalez, who joins the expedition with Kong. I guess you can say she's a daddy's girl, given that she claims that her father always gets what he wants. Regardless, I hope we get to see her again in future movies in the MonsterVerse. This is why we can't have nice things. The next character is Ren Serizawa, played by Shun Oguri. If that last name is familiar, then that is because Ren is a son of Ishido Serizawa from the previous movies. You wouldn't have known that because the film doesn't even bring it up at all. I mean, how could you even do that? His father had a very significant moment in the last movie by sacrificing himself, and you don't even bring that up with his son? How about a scene that talks about how he feels about what his father did or why he's working with the bad guys in this? Instead, we get nothing. He is shown to have been piloting Mechagodzilla with Ghidra's skull from the last movie, but that's put to waste when he gets electrocuted and Mechagodzilla acts out on his own. Hopefully we'll get to see him again in later movies that flesh out his character more. Now let's get to the main attraction of our film, Kong and Godzilla, and in my honest opinion, I feel like this film is kind of one-sided, mostly favoring Kong when it comes to focus. Now you could say that the reason why this was so, because Godzilla already has 2 films to his name in the MonsterVerse, and Kong has only had 1. So they just wanted to even out the playing field. But this is supposed to be a crossover. The cardinal sin of any team-up is to have one side get more focus than the other. However, when Kong does get focus, it's actually pretty good. Like I said earlier, his connection with Gia does a good job at humanizing Kong, even to the point where he actually uses sign language to communicate. I was actually pretty surprised by that, and I think it's very reminiscent of every other iteration of Kong. The fights with Godzilla and Kong are top-notch. Remember how fans didn't like how you could barely see the fights in the first film? They probably kept that in mind because the fights are pretty colorful to look at, especially with the final battle in Hong Kong. Not that it's a bad thing, but it was a thing to note. I also think there was a little bit of humanization with Godzilla in some aspect, mostly in that one shot where you can see him smiling. I mean, look at that! That's just the stuff of nightmares! Imagine putting that next to Jaguar's face. I wonder what would be the reaction.
Can you imagine showing those 2 back to back? Don't show those 2 back to back!
Oh god, what have I done? Anyways, I also think that smile shows what Godzilla is thinking. He's the king of the monsters, and just the thought of brutally being and winning against someone who dares to challenge his status as king is just a thrill to him. Lastly, we have the final boss of the movie, Mechagodzilla. I like that this version of Mechagodzilla is pretty unique from the others, whereas he's created by Apex as opposed to being created by aliens or the government. However, I kind of feel like that Mechagodzilla was shoehorned in at the last moment, and that the film should have focused on just Kong and Godzilla. Better yet, I'm really conflicted on how Kong is the one that defeats Mechagodzilla in the end. Mechagodzilla is supposed to be a clone to Godzilla, and it would have made sense to have him beat someone that is superior to him. Now, here's what I don't get. Godzilla wins both fights against Kong, making him more superior, but Mechagodzilla is superior to Godzilla. Kong defeats Mechagodzilla, so would that change his status in the hierarchy? Regardless, I think it was satisfying seeing the two work together in the climax. For my final grade on this movie, I give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Godzilla vs. Kong doesn't really have that much of a nuance in the story and its characters, but it still delivers in what it promises, which are the fights between Godzilla and Kong. It's still a really enjoyable film nonetheless. The film was a huge success that it greenlit a sequel in the form of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. I will review that movie when I get it on DVD. On the Toho side of things, I am aware of the recently released Godzilla -1, and I would like to have a moment of silence for Godzilla movies that use practical effects. All jokes aside, -1 actually became the first Godzilla movie to win a freaking Oscar, so expect a review of that movie coming soon. Hopefully it'll come out on DVD, or I'll probably check it out on Netflix. Now, for some updates. Alright. So at the beginning of this video, I did mention that I was going to have reviews for Kamen Rider Hibiki and Kishido Sentai Ryusoldier, but it's been such a long while since I last done TokuMania, I kind of lost passion to do those reviews, so I made the decision to cancel them. Now first, on the Ryusoldier side of things, I wasn't really too excited that Ryusoulger was getting adapted into Power Rangers Dino Fury. Unlike how I was with Go Busters being adapted into Beast Morphers, so I didn't really have any desire to rewatch Ryusoulger, so I decided to not do it. And also, given the fact that now Dino Fury has had Cosmic Fury happen, and now it partially, in quotations, was adapted from Q Ranger, and so I won't be doing review of Q Ranger either, so that's that. And for on the Kamen Rider Hibiki side of things, originally my original format that I was going to do was that I was going to have like a spin Wheel of Fortune wheel type gimmick, where I would spin the wheel and it would reveal the next franchise that I would go to, and then it would spin the wheel to the specific show of that franchise that I was going to do. And I landed on Kamen Rider Hibiki after I did my Go Busters review, and I was going to have like a whole format where I would just like review different shows from different format, like not like that, like picking it from, like just picking it out of a, just randomly pick a show. And personally, I'm not really that kind of guy. I'm like with other Toku fans. I'm not trying to criticize how they watch shows. More power to them if they want to, go and watch random shows on their own. But for me personally, I really like watching shows in order. Now, it's kind of weird. I know you're probably thinking it's weird for me to say that, because pretty much every iteration in a certain franchise, like for example, every Kamen Rider season, it's all self-contained, mostly when you consider Kamen Rider Black and Black RX. But I really like watching all the Rider shows in the order that they aired, because I want to get a feeling of the evolution of the franchise, not like continuity. I just like seeing a franchise evolve, starting from an earlier point, or like you see an earlier Showa era season, and then you get to the point we're at now, like with seasons like Gotcha or Geats. So that's why I'm not doing the Hibiki review, and why I'm not doing season reviews, because originally, before I came up with the idea of doing random shows, I was going to review all of Ultraman, but I didn't want to do Ultraman because not every series in Ultraman was available at that point. But now we're at a point where Mill Creek has practically released almost the entire library of Ultraman on Blu-ray, which is pretty cool. And it's easily streamable on Tubi and Pluto TV, so I could just watch them if I wanted to. But then also comes the other problem where I'm binge watching one franchise, but then I have a craving for the other. Like I'm busy watching Ultraman, but I really want to watch Sentai. So that kind of brings that that kind of flux that I get myself into, and I just want to just watch another show. So that's why I'm not doing season reviews anymore. Now, what will be the future of TokuMania? It's canceled. No, I'm kidding. It's not canceled or anything, because I'm actually deciding to do a different idea. In life, I would just like to write down certain stuff about Kamen Riders. I would like to write down all the different forms and all the different collectibles and all the different gear and Mecha and Sentai and Power Rangers. And you know what? If that's what I kind of truly enjoy, then why don't I just have that be TokuMania from now on? Yeah, that's right. So TokuMania from now on is gonna be kind of like Sentai 5's Megazord reviews. I'm not ripping off his idea or anything. You probably think I am, because I mentioned that. Anyways, that's beside the point. So this is what TokuMania is going to be from now on. I'm going to make videos that kind of, for example, if I want to do something Super Sentai related, I'll have an entire video showcasing all the mecha of a certain season. For example, I want to do Gower Ranger, and I'll have an entire video just talking about all of the mechs, the mecha, all the power animals in Gower Ranger. Or for Kamen Rider, if I wanted to focus on the collectible gimmicks, I could just say, focus on all the different advent cards from Kamen Rider Ryuki, or all the different Astro Switches from Forze, and so that's what I want to do. And what if I also want to do villains? Like, focus on an entire season of a show, entire show, and just talk about all the villains in that show. Like, for example, Car Ranger, talk about all the main villains, like Dynamo, the Simp, and the really beautiful Zanette, and Zelmoda, and Grotch, and then talk about all the different monsters that appear in every episode. That's what I want to do. That, I think is a better idea, and I feel like that kind of gets me more excited to do future videos. So that is what TokuMania is going to be from now on. But also, I'm still going to do Godzilla reviews whenever there's a new movie, and I will add it to the Godzilla Fun playlist. And so, yeah, that is what I'm going to do from now on. And let me know what you think. Reply in the comments if you want, and just give me your insight on the whole idea. So, until next time, what you gonna do when TokuMania runs wild on you?